I'm excited. I'm so excited. It's Friday. We're about to get into it. So I want to introduce to y'all my friend and Mogul Chix founder, Adrienne Graham. She also just launched Mogul Chix magazine. Woo! So excited to have her here. I want you guys to hear her story and why she's so uniquely qualified to discuss hiring and firing and outsourcing. And then we'll kind of get into it. So Adrienne, if you want to just introduce yourself to the room, to the CEO School student base, and just explain kind of like how you got into this game and what your background is.
Sure. First of all, good morning, CEO School, and thank you for having me on. As Lainika said, my name is Adrienne Graham. I'm the CEO and founder of Mogul Chix and also Graham Talent Group, which is a recruiting and HR company. My journey started way back 1994 when I launched my first company, which was a recruiting firm, and spent 6 years with that company, then kind of closed it out, moved on to decide what I wanted to do, started another company, which was Hughes Consulting and Management, which was more recruiting and HR strategy with a little bit of recruiting in there. And over the years, I've just been building on that, on those business skill sets. I come from a very simple background. What made me start my first company was when I was working for a staffing agency in New York City. They were acquired, and I decided I don't want to work how they work. I don't like their rules. I don't like what they do. I could do it better. And I was like in my early 20s, had a young child. He was about 3 at the time or something. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do this on my own, and set out on my own. And I left. It was trial and error. So I tell people all the time, I am uniquely qualified to give business advice and to give recruiting advice because I've been through every incarnation of the recruiting cycle, from in the days where you had to cold call to looking through phone books. That's how I got my first client. And, all of that pre-internet, how we have today, all the way up to today, where I do a blend of both old school and new school, which keeps me in the market, keeps me popular. But Mogul Chix is a company that I started back in 2015. It came off the hiatus of me working with a company called Empower Me, which is how Lainika met me originally. That original company was supposed to be for Black women. Somewhere along the line, it kind of got diluted and ended up being for all women. Then it ended up being for everybody, men and women. And it never sat right with my spirit because it took me away from my original intent. So when I launched Mogul Chix, I was very adamant and very clear. This is for Black and brown women. I need to be able to do something because we don't have a space for women of color who make 7, 8, 9 figures. That's out there, at least not that I know of, because if I known, I would have joined. And there's not really a space in the VC landscape and accelerator landscape where they're giving the same opportunities that they give to maybe the Silicon Valley college bros to be able to have access to funding and grow and scale their businesses, and also learn how to become investors as well. So that's kind of the Cliff's Notes version of who I am.
So let's get into this. So I'm going to ask the room first. How many of you have already hired your first, it doesn't even have to be a full-time W-2 employee, but who's hired somebody already in your business? Okay, Kiyoki has. Who else has? No. You have, Jamil has. Okay. Has anybody else hired anyone? Oh, Fluffy has. Okay, awesome. All right, I love it. So today we're going to talk about hiring, firing, and outsourcing. So if you are in the Zoom room, and you guys are welcome to come. I see you, Fluffy, coming into the Zoom room. If you're in the Zoom room, you will see I have Jocelyn in the Zoom room. And Carla is also in the Zoom room. Both of these young ladies are virtual assistants for me. And they serve different purposes. And we'll talk about that too. But I want to really get into outsourcing more so than anything else today. But I do want to discuss hiring and firing because we are experiencing a really interesting labor market, right? So I'm just going to put this question out to you, Adrienne. So we keep hearing about the Great Resignation, right? That's what everyone's talking about right now. People are just literally just quitting their jobs. People are ghosting interviews. They're also ghosting the first day of work, right? People aren't even showing up for their first day. I have some ideas about what's driving that, but I'm going to ask you to just kind of give your expert opinion about what's driving people to go, not just quit, but to ghost employers.
Right. Well, there's a lot of factors that lead into that. The number one I'm going to throw out there is we live in an age now where it is very social media centric, very internet centric, and there's this air of anonymity, and people have felt, in my opinion, that, well, I can ghost on social media, so it's the same thing in real life. A lot of the younger set, and please do not send me hate mail for this, guys, but a lot of the younger set were not kind of groomed in the process of interviews and looking for work and things like that. So they don't have the same skills that we have, like the Gen Xers and before us. It's not being ingrained. It's more so like, you're in the driver's seat. This is what's being taught to people now. You're in the driver's seat, but employers need you, so you control it. So they have this air of, I've seen this air of, well, it's my choice. If I want to do it, I'll do it. If not, I won't. Case in point, I'll give you for instance, the other day I did an interview. I jumped in for one of my recruiters who was sick, and the gentleman said, well, let me be honest with you. I have 2 offers on the table. I said, okay, that's fine. Just, do you want to move forward? Well, they're going to have to come with a higher offer if they were. And I'm like, but you haven't even interviewed yet. You're talking about the offer, So people are funny in that respect. It's like the whole dynamic has shifted. And I don't think employers have caught up to meet with that. I'm a big proponent of meet people where they are. Right. And I don't think employers are equipped to deal with this new mindset around job interviewing and jobs in general. Right. The other part of that is with COVID, a lot of people learned that, hey, I don't need to go in the office. So if there's a company that's forcing me to go in the office, I don't have to go. There's other companies that are hiring. So why do I need to be beholden to someone who's going to make me go in the office? Vaccinated, unvaccinated, or whatever. A lot of people are just like, I learned that I could work from home. I learned that I do better and I'm more productive at home. And if the employer doesn't want to honor that, I don't need to be with them. So that's kind of the other side. And then the third piece of that, of course, is pay and opportunity. No longer is it okay to say, to think as an employer, they need a job, they need to work for me, they're going to take what they can take. No, people are learning now to negotiate for higher pay and for better responsibility. And you'd be surprised, a lot of times it's not even about the pay, it's about the work responsibility. An administrative assistant, I saw even pre-COVID where some friends of mine who were executive assistants were like, they did these cuts, they're reducing workforce. So now they're giving me extra work that I would not have usually had in my job description. I'm an executive assistant in a legal firm, not a social media manager. I don't do, coffee. I don't do this. I don't do that. But they're throwing all of this in the guise of, oh, we're giving you more responsibility, but no more pay. And they're trying to save money. So it's blame for every side of about what's going on. So, but that's what's been my observation.
So can I add another observation that I've seen? Okay, so I have noticed that because we're in this super hyper gig economy, that people have figured out that they can decide when they want to work and when they don't want to work. They can pick up shifts when they need money and just refuse shifts when they want to sleep in later, right? Yes. So that is also a contributor. I've seen that especially in the Bay Area, right? We have a lot of people that they just drive. They just do DoorDash, they do Uber, they do all of them though. They sign up for all of the gigs, right? So they're doing DoorDash, they're doing Instacart, they're doing Uber Eats, they're doing all of them. They might have 5 or 6 gigs, right? And they just decide at that moment what they want to do and how long they want to work that day.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's the Uber effect.
The Uber effect. So for employers, it's very difficult, right? When you need people to work a full-time day or full shift to really adapt to that. I think that some of us who've noticed, who have recognized it, are trying to find ways to accommodate that. But it's very difficult for an employer to figure out, how do I adapt my culture to fit what's really happening right now with people.
Right.
So anyway, that was something that
yeah. Well, see, in the major cities, that is a big effect, because like if you look at, let's say, the Bay Area, New York City, Miami, I'll even throw Central Florida in there because it's like the resort vacation spot. So you have a lot of Uber and stuff like that. When you look at those areas, yes, that is a huge problem. But when you look at like Grand Forks, Utah, or some other smaller city within a state, they don't see that as much because it's not a lot of that going on. So it's more prevalent in the major cities. I've seen it myself here in Las Vegas, not so much. I haven't really had that much problem, but to combat that, I always tell people, look at your recruiting process, look at your interview process, and all of that ties in together, because I've been doing it a lot of years. I don't expect someone who's just newly starting to hire to get it, but I can tell based off the first 5 minutes of a conversation with a candidate whether it's going to go somewhere or not. I look at their resume, I go through it with a fine-tooth comb. If I see that they've been job hopping, or if I see that they've done a lot of gig economy, then I'm a little bit more skeptical of that candidate. And what I have to train my employers, my hiring managers, is stop looking at the surface. This a person will come to me and say, oh, this resume is great, I would love to interview them. I'm like, okay, we need to have a full behavioral interview with them. We had to do situational. I need to know what you've done, how you've done it, if it's a likelihood of you going to do it again, the whole gamut. I mean, you've been in HR, Lainika, so you understand. But a lot of times employers are like so fascinated by what they see on the outside, they're not paying attention to the internal cues. So if I see someone that's newly out of college, that has interned, is hungry and wants a career, those are the people that I'm going to talk with, versus someone that says, I've been Uber driving, I've been door dashing, I've been this, I've been that, because I'm going to look at it like, okay, this person's not going to want to come in an office, versus the person that's hungry and really is looking for a career. So I always tell people, hire people based on what their long-term goals are and how they'll fit, and if they're groomable to move up within your company. Don't just grab just any old person off the street just because they're a warm body and put them in there. So you have to have a hiring process. You have to have vetted interview questions. You have to know where you're looking for candidates. And please do me a favor, stay away from Craigslist and Indeed and Facebook jobs and all of that. That's not how you search, but that's a whole other topic. So that's why they find these
about that. Tell the people how they should be searching.
Well, you should be looking where you should be looking based upon what the type of job is. So let's say you have finance manager opening. I'm just throwing that out there. The last place I'm looking on is Facebook and Craigslist and Monster and things like that. I'm going to go to a more specialized site that deals with accounting people. If you're dealing with tech, you go to tech lists, tech jobs. Dice is a good one. Angel List is a good one, especially in the startup community. You go to where the people are that you need. This throw it against the wall and see what sticks approach never works, because you get an influx of people who are not qualified. Indeed, please don't let anybody from Indeed come get me, but let me break that down to you guys really, really quickly. I had a graphic designer position. I'm just using this as an example, a graphic designer position that I put out there. This was maybe 3 months ago. Within the first hour, I had 117 people respond to that post. I posted because my client asked me to put it on all job listings, job boards, even though I advised her not to do that. So that 117 people, 13 of them actually were graphic designers with actual experience. So with Indeed, they tout that you can get all these candidates in an instant, and yes, you can, but they're not qualified candidates. So you have to be very careful about that. I had, credit manager I'm working on with someone now, and I get people that are doing how to fix your credit, how to, mortgage loans. And I'm like, no, business, it says business credit experience, commercial experience in the ad. I guess candidates think, oh, well, maybe they'll see that maybe I can grow into this role.
Or I could win, I could learn it.
Yes, you have to be super specific. If you are not about on-the-job training, you have to make that very clear in your ads. And I'm sorry to say, but sometimes you have to set the ad goals very high, the post very high, because that way it eliminates the riffraff. Oh, I shouldn't say that word, but that's the truth. That's where we are today in the hiring market.
So it's interesting that that you talk about if you're not for on-the-job training, right? You need to be very specific about that, because I found that a lot of people come to the new position expecting to be trained, like, you know, from start to finish, like literally teach me how to use Excel, right? So you have, I agree, you have to be very specific, but I want to, that's what I want to transition and talk about outsourcing now a little bit, since we're talking about on-the-job training. Like I said, we have Jocelyn here and we have Carla here, and both of them are my virtual assistants. Jocelyn, you can come off the mic and say hello to everyone. You can unmute your mic for a second.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Hello.
So Jocelyn is, she's my newest virtual assistant. Carla is my oldest virtual assistant. So Carla has been with me for 6 years now, Carla?
Yep.
Yep, 6 years. Jocelyn has been with me for 1 week. So yeah, it's been fantastic. So they serve very different purposes. Let me let Sheena into the Zoom room. They serve very different purposes. So this is what I found, and I'm going to ask you to kind of take over the conversation. But what I have found with outsourcing, and I've outsourced lots. So when I first started TrashLogic, I outsourced all of my marketing, all of my tech, right? All of that was outsourced. And I was very specific about who I would work with. Like, they had to speak the language fluently. I had, you know, they could be overseas, but they had to work my hours, right? So you have to be very specific. But what I find is that people will hire through websites like Upwork, Fiverr. First of all, I don't like Fiverr. I do like Upwork, but I don't like Fiverr. There are better platforms to use, right, to hire people overseas. I actually hired Jocelyn through Outsourced Doers, and we could talk about that later. But what I find is that with a lot of people that I have worked with and trained, they'll say, oh, well, I hired a virtual assistant. And I said, what do they do for you? Oh, just everything. I just gave them everything. Well, what are they trained to do? What do they know how to do? You know, you need to hire for what it is that you need them to do, right? So Carla's really, really good with admin. Like, she's that top level administrative assistant that can, you know, really support an executive. Jocelyn is trained in digital marketing and social media marketing. So she's doing all of those things for me, right? What Carla does is different from what Jocelyn does. What AJ does is build my websites, right? AJ is completely different. He's a tech person. So what is your advice for people when they are outsourcing, and what are the mistakes that you see them making most?
Okay. Let me preface this with a big apology to your VAs, because this is not anything personal. What my personal opinion is, in the beginning, when you're starting out your business, yes, VAs are crucial. I think that as you grow and scale a company, and as you have certain growth goals, I think you need to start working on transitioning VAs to being your actual staff, because then they'll be dedicated solely to you. VAs are business owners in essence, and I think a lot of people get confused where they conflate a VA with an employee and start putting demands on a VA as if they were an actual employee. Microsoft, they're an independent contractor for all intents and purposes. Microsoft is one of those companies that got slapped very heavily a few years back, if you remember, because they misclassified employee versus contractor.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel, or I see when I'm watching like conversations on social media about my VA this, I gave them this, I had them this, I had them that, but it was as if they were saying, this is my employee.
Yeah.
Without saying it. And that can lead you into tax problems.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, make sure that you have your VA for a specific amount of time, but have a plan in place to eventually move them on to being your employee, so they're only working with you. So that's the first thing. The second thing, when you're outsourcing, like Lainika said, be very specific about what you need. I think it's unfair, whether it's a VA or an admin that you hire, to give them that title and then throw everything in the kitchen sink at them.
Yeah.
You need to be very super specific about what tasks you hire them for. I made a mistake in hiring an assistant, and in the interview process, which I'm usually very thorough, I asked her, I said, you know, I have plans on bringing tech in-house because I want eventually all of my things to be in-house under one roof. I said, how good are you with WordPress, Elementor, with, you know, all of that tech stuff? She says, oh, I'm great. Well, fast forward, she did one landing page for me. It was good. After that, it was a disaster. Then it came maybe a couple of months later, we had our review meeting, and it was, well, you know, I was really just beginning in WordPress and I didn't want to disappoint you. So that's why I told you I knew it. So you have to be very specific and clear and ask for examples of work that they've done, whether it's a VA or an employee, to make sure that they can do the actual work. The work that she could have done.
Let me understand what you just said. Ask for examples of their work.
Yes.
That's really important. I do want to go back real quick to the first point that you made about transitioning them to your staff. So when I started, I've always had an in-house executive assistant, always, from the start. So when I hire virtual assistants, it's to help with filling in the gaps of the things that my full-time staff can't do. So if you guys are hiring virtual assistants, you know, at the beginning, like she said, it's great. Like Jamel, we've been talking about you getting a virtual assistant. You need that right now. But once you hire your full-time assistant, that virtual assistant fills in the gaps. So Matt is, you guys have heard me talk about Matt. Matt is my full-time executive assistant. Matt runs my life, right? Carla knows Matt. She talks to Matt. Jocelyn's met Matt, right? She talks to Matt. So your virtual assistants, like she said, are contractors, right? They don't work in your business. They work basically on their own, right? They're freelancers. So you want to make sure that you give them specific tasks. So I just want to underscore that. If you guys are taking notes, I want to make sure that we make it very clear what we're saying here. You want to give them very, very specific tasks to do. And as you grow your business, you will start hiring normal W-2 employees. But, you know, it does help to have these freelancers that you can plug in to fill other roles. One of the things, the first thing that Jocelyn did was fix my website that I've been struggling with for the last, I don't know, 6 months. Within 24 hours, she had it working and it was great, right? So that's why you go to someone who's specialized in what they do. So back to you, sorry. I just wanted to make sure I reiterate.
No, and I agree with that. And yes, I do know who Matt, we've had conversations. The thing about it is when you're, and I don't know the level of the people who are in CEO school, so I'm just speaking blindly. I'm assuming they're startups. When what I've seen, a lot of startups, and even like the ones that are maybe 3-5 years in already, they rely so heavily on VAs. They don't want to hire anybody in-house. And that's where we have the fight, the struggle. It's like you said, VAs are to supplement or, you know, eventually transition them over to full-time if that's what they want to do. And what I see is a lot of people saying it's cheaper for me to just go ahead and get a VA instead of looking at the long-term plan for their business. You know, it's not cheaper to outsource in the end. In the beginning, and once you have everything in place, then you can start slowly letting the outsourcing piece go of it. But in the beginning of your business, yeah, absolutely, you need to outsource. And I always tell people, if you're going to get a VA in the beginning, you absolutely need that. But then a lot of times I see people that get the VAs and think they're kind of like the drop off. Oh, this one will do my social media. This one will do my tag. This one will do my email. This one will do my schedule. This one. No, you have to be specific about what you need from a VA. And I see a lot of conversations on social media. I had a VA and it didn't work out. And I had to let her go. Yeah, because you weren't specific about what you needed. So save yourself the time and aggravation. Make sure that you have a solid interview plan in place when you're interviewing these people. Find out, get samples of their work. Look at their work. They can tell you they did anything, but go look at what they've done and see if it's something that's comparable to what you need, as opposed to saying, oh, I took your word for it. No, let me just hire them. And then 3 months later, you're on social media crying that you had to fire your VA, so.
Exactly. I think it's really important too. We're gonna kind of mix everything together, the hiring, the firing, the outsourcing. So most businesses, if you're a startup, we talked about this, you will come to a point in your business where you've hit a wall and you're kind of like, Jesus, I don't really know how to transition in this space, right? So that's why it's important to have coaches and mentors and, make sure that you're connected to people that can guide you. I prefer business strategists over coaches, but, we talk about that another time. But make sure you have people in your space that can help you transition. But I went through a phase in my business, and a lot of startups do this, right? Where the people that started with me no longer fit, right? The mission, right? They were no longer able to go where I was going. Mm-hmm. But you start to feel loyal to those people, right? And you feel like, oh, I don't, they depend on this, and I've built these relationships with them. So what is your advice to all of these wonderful blessings in here that have these new businesses, and they may be in year 2, right? Year 3, where they're saying, okay, these people that started with me, they're great, but they just don't fit where I'm going. How would you suggest that they have that conversation with those team members?
Right. Well, first of all, you have to be honest. I am a victim of procrastination on that, because in the beginning, I would grow such close relationships. It was very important for me to make my team feel like family.
You were saying about having an honest conversation with people that just don't fit your mission anymore.
Yes. You have to, we all want our employees to feel like family in some sort of way. And that's how I felt when in the early days when I had my business. So when it came time for me to fire my first person, it killed me. Like, I cried. I really did. I'm going to be 100% honest. You have to find a fine line between employer and, I don't want to say friend. You build a relationship with your employees where they understand that you are the boss, but they still know they can come to you. I am very much a firm believer in not bringing personal to work. I will inquire, like my social media manager just had a baby. So of course I congratulated her, sent her a gift and all of that. But it doesn't mean that if something happened, I wouldn't be able to fire her. I'm not going to fire her. I'm just saying. But you have to be able to be firm in your belief that, listen, this is where my company is going. This is where your skill sets are lacking. You have one of 2 options. Either we can let you go, or let's work on a plan, a performance improvement plan, to see if you can grow within the company with us. I'm willing to do that. I'm not heartless. I don't just fire people off the top, but you have to have a plan in place, because some people will get it and catch on and be able to rise with you, and some people won't. Those people, which we call the dead weight, so to speak, I hate to be so blunt, you have to be willing to cut quick. You fire quick, you hire slow. That's what I tell people all the time. It was the other way around. Hire slow, fire quick. Because the longer you put it off, the longer you keep a person on, 1, they're not going to be able to contribute to your bottom line. Number 2, you're going to grow resentful because you're not getting the results that you need. And number 3, that person may get a false sense of security, like, oh, I'm here forever, I'm not going anywhere. And then you have to lower the boom. One thing I tell my people when they come to me about firing is, listen, I feel, for me as an employer, I have an obligation. I create jobs and I help to build people's lives. However, I'm not responsible for what goes on in their household. I'm not responsible for what's going on in their pocketbook. So you have to be able to definitively separate the 2. Women get that tearjerker moment. We got the heartstrings where it's like, oh, we feel bad. We don't want to fire someone. We don't want to let them go. That is a female response. You have to be strictly business with your employees. Yes, treat them well, go above and beyond. As long as they are performers for your company, yes, absolutely treat them well. But the people who are underperforming, you either put them on a performance plan or you get rid of them. And that has to happen quickly. You can't let that linger. That's money going out the window. That's money that you're paying out in salary, benefits, taxes, and all that. And it's money that's not coming in because you're not doing the job they're supposed to be doing. So always looking at it from a business standpoint and the dollars and cents of it.
I love it. So it's absolutely true that you have to keep it strictly business. The issue is that when you develop those personal relationships with people within your business, those people start to feel like they are entitled to your, how do I say this? To a more personal, yeah, more of a personal, I don't know, conversation or more personal investment in their lives, right? So having those conversations become, and I will tell you, I have had these conversations mostly with women where I have to say, this is a business conversation. This is not an emotional conversation. How you feel in this moment does not matter.
Right.
We are speaking about facts. You know, not that I'm not saying I don't care about you or your feelings. What I'm telling you is that those things at this moment don't matter, right? And having those conversations are difficult with people that you genuinely do care for, but you have to have them. And what will happen is that they will eventually come to just respect that this is what it is, that this is a business relationship. If you keep it quick crossing the line though, quick doing that, you know, saying, okay, we're professional. Okay, today we're not, right? You have to make sure that you stay, you know, professional at all times when you're talking about business.
But you see, women mostly have that problem with crossing the line. It's mostly women. And like I said, I admit in the beginning, I treated everybody like family. And it was like, okay, do you want to grow a business? If you have a good business and these people working well for you, you can grow even bigger. But if you are going to just let things slide or don't want to have hard conversations because it's emotional, you're not meant for business. You know, so I always tell women, you got, I'm not gonna say how I say it, but you got to toughen up. And, you know, you got to woman up and you have to be, if you are the CEO, you are the CEO of the company. Doesn't mean you're heartless, but it means you're about your business. They understand that. And like Lainika said, they'll respect you and they'll respect your company better. So, yeah. Yeah.
And you have to explain to people, I know I've had to, you know, I don't know if you would be having this conversation if you were standing in front of the CEO at Target.
Right.
You know, would you be having this conversation with them? Absolutely not.
Exactly.
You know, because I have 30 employees doesn't mean that I'm any, you know, my company is any less of a company, right? We're not a mom and pop. I have to explain that to people. We're not a mom and pop. This is not the corner liquor store where we're just hanging out, right? This is a business. There's real life consequences to what we do here. So this has been a really good conversation. Does anyone have any questions? I had something come up on my phone. Does anybody have any questions for Adrienne? Because she does have an appointment in 10 minutes. Do you have any questions? You could either type it in the chat or you can ask it out loud if you have had any experience with hiring, firing, or outsourcing that you want to discuss.
I'm open, I don't bite.
The floor is open to you. Okay, so Lovey has a question.
Okay.
Thoughts, I should say, on hiring family.
I didn't hear the question.
So what are your thoughts on hiring family?
Oh, don't do it if you can help. Well, okay, so let me give two examples. So one time I hired a cousin And she was very enthusiastic, but she was like, well, you my cousin, you not my, she didn't look at me as her boss. I had to fire her after 5 months because she was slacking. And it was like, well, my cousin is the boss and I could do what I want to do. No, that's not how we run this. Okay. On the other side of it, my sister, I hired her part-time last year. She goes full-time with me June 1st, as a matter of fact, coming up. And she is just as hungry as I am. She's like, look, we're going to get it. Look, we joke about hashtag private jet life. And she's like, we're going to make this happen. And she has been my hungriest family employee. And she goes above and beyond. She's on her way to an Alaskan cruise right now. She called me yesterday and was like, I got my laptop with me. I just bought the internet package. Let me know what I need to do. I was like, that's the hire that you get, okay?
Yes.
That's the family that you hire.
So
I would say, depending on their personality and how you mesh well, and if they respect your business, then you can go ahead and hire them. Other than that, stay away from it.
So you guys know my brother and my father work for me. They have been, first of all, they're the best at what we do, right? They know more than anyone else. They can answer any question. They come to work every day, not like I'm just sauntering in. They're there before anybody else. They're up before me. They're at the office at 5 a.m. and I don't have to worry about them. They don't, and they never pull that's my daughter card or that's my sister card, ever. And I've hired other family members who absolutely did not understand the line. Absolutely did not understand it and didn't respect it, and became quickly upset because when they realized that when you're here, you are a team member. You're not my cousin. When you're here, you're a team member, and you get it just like everybody else. We're all on the same team, and there's no favorites here. And they deal with it because they felt like, well, you're my cousin. I should be able to not pick up the phone for 4 hours and then just saunter back in here. No, that's not how we do things here, right? So did that answer your question, Lovey?
Well, let me also add this, because I had to fire my niece last year. She's talking to me now. At first, she couldn't understand it. You have to know your family member. And when you sit down and explain it to me, I had to explain to her twice why I was firing her, and she was very upset with me. Then she finally got it. It was like, yeah, I understand. I did slip up. Yeah, this is a business and all that. So you have to decide, if this goes south, is it worth sacrificing my relationship with this family member? I love my niece, but she knows I'll fire her butt in a minute. And I told her, I said, you got a year before you can even reapply to work with me. So you got to be very firm in your business when you hiring family members. Let them know what your requirements are. Let them know what the consequences are. And you got to have this conversation up front in the beginning before you even extend an offer to them. They have to understand, like I said, it took my niece a while. She's good now. It's like, there's a difference between auntie and there's a difference between boss. When I call her and I'm like, hey, Nakaya, that's boss. When I call her, well, I'm not gonna say her nickname because she get mad if I call her that, but if I call her and say that, she knows it's auntie time. So you have to know, your family member has to know how to differentiate between me, the boss, and me, the family member.
I love it. So Lovey, you're about to say something else?
Okay, I was wondering, because I have a family member that is, oh my goodness, I don't even know. It's ridiculous. And then it's like, she can't work with other people because I have like nurses that come in, and then I try to hire someone to give her relief from her job, and she like makes the job a living hell for anybody that I bring in because
You're in the matrix. You just went into the matrix. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so my is like now.
Oh, no, you're in the matrix. Adrienne says she's got to go.
You got to go.
She's got to go.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that person has to go, because if she's causing that much upheaval in your business, she got to go.
Because of that emotional contact.
She's saying that emotional part. She's in the matrix. She's having audio
Yeah, I
problems.
see. I
She
couldn't.
said because of the emotional part, she's having a hard time.
Okay, so do you want to be a family member or a business owner? You got to differentiate. You got to
She
make the
said,
hard
"Ooh."
decision.
She said, "Ooh."
You have to do the hard decisions. You know what? Like I said, it took my niece a while to be friends again with me. I'm okay with that because my business is my business. She's always going to be my niece. But if my business fails, what's going to happen? You know, so you have to, and I hate to sound cold about it, but you have to put your business first. Emotions have to go to the side when you're running a business.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they will go and find another job.
Yes.
If your business fails, that's you. You just lost everything. But they'll just go and find another job.
Yep.
So that's a real question. Do you want to be a business owner or do you want to be a family member?
Yep.
You could be both, but maybe not both at the same time.
Right. In this time.
In this time. You know, you can't always mix the two. So
Right.
Adrienne, thank you so much.
You're
Tell
welcome.
everybody how they can find you on the interwebs.
On the internet streets, you can find me under my name, Adrienne.Graham on Facebook. I'm Adrian Graham on Instagram. On the internet as Mogul Chix, everything is Mogul Chix, MOGULCHIX. And you can go to mogulchix.com, of course, or email me at info@mogulchix.com.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming to CEO School. Last minute, y'all, we pulled this together in 15 minutes.
That's fine. That's fine.
We
And if
pulled this
anybody has
together.
any questions, just hit me up on DM or they can email me. Just put CEO School in the subject line so that I know who you are. Otherwise, I'll be like, who is this person sending me email?
We have 1 minute, so I wanted to just finish what I was saying. We pulled this together in 15 minutes, but the reason that I brought that up is because this is what happens when you know your subject, right? You can do that. We were talking about starting the Established Expert series that I'm doing. If you don't know what you're talking about, you could never do this, right? You'll be so flustered and confused. We could just hop on here and have a conversation because this is real life, right? So being prepared is everything, right? And you prepare before the opportunity comes. You prepare by preparing yourself. That's why I say be lifelong learners. When you come to CEO School every Friday at noon, you better be taking notes. If you're not taking notes, I'm not quite sure what you're doing with your life. All right. So thank you, Adrienne, for coming. And I will talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.